Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is hale and hearty. Today, I would like to share a very common thing, and that was shared by Newton in 1665. That was the Newton's law of universal gravitation. Now, we all know about the gravitational law that everything pulls down. Today, we are on the earth and we are able to stand, to walk. Everything is possible just because of the gravitation. But do you know there is a one other force and that is different from gravity? That is just opposite to the gravity. As gravity cannot be seen, similarly, grace can also be not seen. But these are the two opposite forces but work simultaneously to make the life possible. We all know the law of gravitation. It means something that pulls us down, something that makes everything possible on the earth. Now, if we talk about law of grace, now this is something very different, something very unique. But it was shared by a French philosopher, Simone Weil, in her book Gravity and Grace. Gravity is the word come from grave. Where is grave? That is on the earth. It means that pulls us down, that makes us to lie down. That is the gravity, that is the grave. Grave, if we talk about the synonyms of the grave, is very serious, isn't it? So we are very serious in our life just because of the gravitational force and just because of the science. Science, we talk about today science and technology, and we say this is the gravity, this is the gravitational force that is making us to live on this earth. Otherwise, we keep on floating and colliding with each others, will not be able to sustain the balance also. But at the same time, it is the grace that makes our life beautiful, that makes us to live life. Now, what is grace? Grace is the grace of the God. Guru Nanak Dev Ji told that it is the prasad, that is the prasad from the Almighty, Hukum ka prasad. Or we can say grace is gratitude. Grace is love that is poured incessantly, continuously by the Almighty. So, this is the grace. And without this grace, the life is very mechanical. We are just robots. Gravity, that is, I would like to say gravity. Gravity is a science, and grace is spirituality. But we just want to go for the gravity only. We don't want to realize the grace, because this grace is very profound and deep in meaning. When we talk about grace, it means that makes us very light, that makes us upward. Gravity is downward, grace is upward. Grace makes us lighter and lighter. Gravity is the that pulls us down because of our weight, because of our mass. You know about Newton, what he has explained in his theories. Now, the question comes that why it's important to know about the gravity and the grace. It's very important because without this balance between gravity and grace, life that sustains, that is somewhere between the grace and the gravity, is somewhere some lost. Now you just see that only gravity is there. We don't have the realization of the grace, and only gravity is there. So you can see, just because of this gravity, the life has become very grave and serious today. People, they have become so serious, sullen. But when we realize the people, those who are bubbling, those who are buoyant, those who are so happy, they have grace in their life. We have seen, it's very tragic that so many children, हमारे जो youth हैं, they, just because of the gravity, and since they don't realize the grace, they take the extreme steps, and today it's increasing day by day, because the grace is diminished day by day from our lives. It's only the gravity, and we are just mechanical. Grace is God's smile. Now, Does the God smile only few people? Is the grace only for the few people? Is the God biased? No. The gods and the God's smile. The God is never in the frowning position, never frowns at others. It is completely, against of the law. If we know God, then God can never frown. God is always smiling on each and everybody. The nature and the God, they are not biased. अगर हम उनको bias कहते हैं, it is something very very wrong. God can never be biased. But the only thing is that the grace, when we talk about grace, so, to get the grace, to realize the grace, to feel the importance of the grace in our life, it is important that how we are receiving it. For example, grace is like rain that is being poured onto us, regardless of any, prejudices, because God is never biased. ये जो बारिश अनवरत हो रही है हमारे ऊपर, सबके ऊपर, ग्रेस एक तरह से बारिश है जो हम सब पर हो रही है। लेकिन हम में से कितने लोगों ने अपने बर्तन को सीधा रखा हुआ है? It means when we keep the pot open, right, from the open side, not the opposite side, that when we have kept the pot in the open, the water will, the rain will be there, the water will be there, and this is the grace. But if we have kept our pot upside down, do you think the grace will be received? Not at all. This is what actually the grace. And we keep on complaining, the God has not been grace to me. God has been grace to each and everyone. The only thing is, how have you kept your pot? Opened, upside down. Second thing, when we talk about the grace, the reception of the grace, how we receive it, grace is being poured onto us continuously. It is being poured onto us continuously. But what is important, that our pot is not only opened and receiving it, but also it doesn't have the holes in it. Now just see, if we are getting the grace, but the water is leaked because it has poured, it has been sieved down, it has been emptied. And what are these holes? These holes, the selfishness of the holes of selfishness, holes of jealousy, hatred, negativity, all these holes are there. Don't you think that we have to make these holes shut? It means we have to overcome from these kinds of harshness, negativity, pessimism, jealousy, hatred. Then only we can receive the grace of the God, not only receiving the grace of the God, but also containing it also, but also retaining it also. Most of the time we are always grumbling, complaining, and these grumbles and complaints, they are the holes. We are getting it, we are not able to realize it, and through holes they seep down. So don't you think that the grace is there, but it has not been realized? Similarly, when we talk about the grace, that who receives the grace, grace is not actually given to some people. God chooses some people to give the grace. Grace is everywhere. It is, so the grace actually is the goodness of the God that is being poured onto us incessantly, continuously, and that we have to receive and we have to accept it. Now, the point is that most of us say we are so negative in our life. We always say, no, this is not the kind of life I want. This is what kind of life you want. You cannot choose, because the God is only giving you. You have to accept it. You have to make your hand like this. You don't have to make your hand like this. You have to make your hand like this. If you're getting it, you can just drink it and you're satisfied. This is the grace. To accept the grace, one should empty oneself. It means, empty means, if your pot is always filled, how can you get the receive? How can you receive the grace? It's important to empty your pot. How to empty it? It means by giving the grace, two ways to empathy is by giving the grace to others. Second thing is when we talk about empathy, empathy with the negativity, jealousy, hatred, all these, when we talk about these, when we just talk to empty our pot, it means to make ourselves empty so that we can receive it, we can retain it. Now it is already full, it's going to brim, it's going to fall. It's important that we have to empathy to receive the gaze. Now, empathy in two ways. Empathy is by distributing. Second thing is by empathy is we can empathy, we just overcome from the arrogance, from the negativity, from all these kind of things. Grace is like a muffler. This has been given to me by a noble lady. This is the grace. And it gives me warm, it gives me the warmth, it gives me, the love, it makes me feel good. This is the grace. Have you ever observed it? So don't be just into the force of gravity, just light yourself, realize the grace, just make yourself, you know up, make yourself light so you are uplifted. Gravity, only gravity. If we only go for science, gravity, we will be there in the grave. But if we have the grace, we will be there in the heart. So let's combine these two. If you have a gravity, you'll be lying down. It's the grace that you get up early in the morning. You just go and do your work. It is the grace. So, with this ending of this year 2023, I just want you to just change your perception, not be just into the gravitational force. Just accept the grace, feel the grace, and live your life with that grace. I think this is going to be a wonderful time when you realize the grace.